Thank you all again for joining us today for our March Wednesday webinar. And without further ado, Mr. Wayne Hammon.
Thanks, I appreciate that. As I mentioned, I'm excited to be with you today. When I was in the governor's office, I worked very closely with David Hensley, who's the head of the Idaho Realtors, and it was honored that he called and asked me to join you all today. It's wonderful that even though I don't represent home builders, your organization, our organization, and the Home Builders Association are very much aligned, and we greatly appreciate that and the work that you all do. We're going to talk about the commercial construction and how that actually does tie into the home market as well. And as I said, we're going to leave plenty of times at the end for question and answer. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and if this will work. There we are. So we're going to talk a little bit about the outlook and what it looks like. We're going to start with where we've been and then kind of look at where we're going. But first, let's talk about what the Idaho AGC is. We have almost 700 member companies. Unlike the Idaho Realtors Association, where you all join individually, on the construction side, the company joins, and then everybody who works there gets access to the member benefits. And so our 700 members is like 685, really, almost 700 members, represents, around 20,000 active participants in AGC programs. Total workforce we'll get into in the 70,000 range. You see they're located all across Idaho and beyond. A lot of our members are here in the Treasure Valley, just like I assume a lot of yours are as well. But we have very strong membership pockets in Eastern Idaho and Northern Idaho as well. As was mentioned, AGC is the only organization that represents the entire entity of the commercial construction space. So it doesn't matter if you're a general contractor or a subcontractor, a supplier or a service provider. It doesn't matter if you're a union shop or a non-union shop. It doesn't matter if you're building roads and bridges or hospitals and schools. A lot of our members build multifamily housing. And we have folks that are family owned. Ed the Painter in Twin Falls is a member of the Idaho AGC. So is National Coatings, one of the largest paint companies in the world. We have both large and small, like I said, open shop and union shop. If you're in the commercial space, we want you inside the AGC. So when it comes to construction, as I mentioned, there are over 70,000 Idahoans working in construction. That is an increase over last year, almost a 5% increase in the number of people working in construction in Idaho. In fact, the only reason that's not an even larger increase is because we keep running out of people. If we can find more people to work in construction, there are jobs every day that go unfilled. But we are now at twice the national average when it comes to growth. Now, of course, you all understand how averages work, right? The smaller the denominator, the difference the average makes. And so even though we're a small state, we have a large chunk of people in construction, and we have more coming every year. That is a 27% increase over the last 4 years. We anticipate that to be even more so in the coming year. And we'll talk about why here in just a minute. But more and more Idahoans are finding a career in construction, and we're happy to have them. Like I said, the only limiting factor there are his bodies. We have more jobs to fill than we have people to fill them. Overall, construction is a $6.5 billion industry in Idaho. 4.7 of that is non-residential. And so that's the bulk of the work that the Idaho AGC does. Those are both public and private. You'll see the public makes up 1.7 billion of that last year. That public spending would be roads and bridges. It would also be public institutions like the universities, school districts, things like that. The vast majority of the work that our members do is in the private market. And all you have to do is count the number of tower cranes in Boise or even Idaho Falls, and you can see the amount of private work that's going on all across Idaho. The vast majority of the construction money is private. We did almost $1 billion in multifamily last year, which is great. We expect that number to be high again this year. Now that some of the projects are coming online, I can't say, I've been saying for years that there are more apartments under construction in downtown Boise than there are apartments in downtown Boise. Some of them are now coming online, but in the next 18 months, we will have more than doubled the number of apartment units available for people in this Boise city limits. Some of that is affordable housing, some of it's very high-end housing, and it's spread out across all of Boise. But there's a lot of multifamily being built, and that's just Boise. You add into it Meridian and Nampa and elsewhere, we see that. We see large multifamily projects being developed in Idaho Falls and in the Coeur d'Alene area as well. It's a very strong sector of the economy. It does not seem to be lighting up. What's interesting to me is that last year, the spending in single family matched the spending in multifamily. So you consider that the individual unit, the unit price for a single family is much larger. To have the same amount of spending means that we're building a lot more apartments than we are single family homes. 14% of the spend in construction is in single family homes. In prior years, that number would have been much, much larger. But as you all know, because it's your bread and butter, that number has been sliding and being replaced with this multifamily number. Why does that matter? Because all of construction is tied together. Even though my members, the members of the Idaho AGC, do not build single family homes, we have a lot of subcontractors that go across those lines. And so you may have a painter who paints homes, but will also paint an apartment building, or may also do painting in a hospital or something like that. And so there are lots of crossovers. The people that do the concrete for a warehouse can also do the concrete for a manufacturing facility or a retail facility. The people who are doing healthcare work could also do educational work. And so all of them are tied together. And as one section of the construction market softens, that provides room in the other sections to pick up. And we've seen a lot of that. We've seen as school bonds get harder to pass, people who used to specialize in schools are now doing additional work in other factors. So what does that mean? In Idaho, construction is 5.7% of the total GDP. That is larger than the national average, which is 4%. Again, Idaho is one of the fastest, as you all know, Idaho is one of the fastest growing states, and that continues in the commercial market as well. We expect that to grow even more in the coming year. And a big part of that is in the wages. So these are 2022 numbers. They're now a little outdated. But the average Idaho salary across all industries, so that's people flipping hamburgers to the president of Simplot, the average wage in Idaho in 2022 was $40,000. In construction, most of our jobs start at that and only go up. The average supervisor is making $63,000, plumbers are making $61,000, electricians are making $50,000. And again, these are 2022 numbers. When you consider that we've seen an increase, a significant increase in the last year, and we expect an even larger increase in the coming year, you'll see that the wages in construction is vastly outpacing wage inflation in other industries. I don't know what the wages are in all of them, but we know in construction, we simply cannot keep up. What's driving that? A lot of things, but a big part of it is the investment that's going on here in the Boise Valley. As you know, Micron is investing $15 billion in a new fab at their campus on the east side of town at the end of the runway. There's a project labor agreement in place on that that guarantees that every construction worker on that site has a minimum wage that's pretty hefty. In addition to that, if you're a certified journeyman, which means you've gotten 5-6 years of experience under your belt and have passed all the necessary tests, you get a $10 an hour increase. They're going to have at peak construction next summer, in summer of 2025, about 4,000 people working on that one job site. There aren't 4,000 construction workers in Idaho looking for work. And so a lot of them are going to have to move to Idaho from other states. And we've been helping the contractors who are building this project recruit people in other states to come to Idaho. Part of that recruitment effort is a $240 a day per diem. So if your home is more than 150 miles away from Boise, you not only get a guaranteed wage that's higher than the average now, and a $10 an hour bonus if you're a journeyman, but you also get $240 a day to pay rent or a payment on a house or that type of things. It's a very generous pay structure, and that's going to have rippling effects across all of the industry. Why would you want to paint houses in Nampa when you can paint out there for that much more money? Actually, painting is probably not an example. Electricians, HVAC techs are premium when it comes to these type of high-tech, high electrical constructions. So what is the challenges facing the industry? It's not all just sunshine and roses, right? What are we facing? We have a shortage, and I said that before, but the real problem in our industry is finding talent, keeping them in Idaho. We also have some supply chain gaps. They're better than they were, back in the COVID days when you were paying, a premium for plywood. That's kind of been fixed now, but we still have gaps. That's especially true in steel and iron. It's very hard to find available steel and iron. And then the high-tech components, HVAC systems, controllers, switches. The AGC owns our building here in Boise, and I just put in 2 new air conditioning units, and it took me 18 months to have them delivered from the time I placed the order. It's just that hard to find high-tech things for us. I assume that is also playing out in the home market as well, but it's really putting a cramp on the commercial market. Also, and again, I'm preaching to the choir here, you all live this every day. The interest rate has definitely affected construction. With the supply shortages, a lot of suppliers are now requiring contractors to make pretty hefty deposits when they place the order. And that's almost always done on credit. So every time the interest rate is a little higher, that means the credit available to contractors gets a little more tight. And so we continue to watch that. We've done some changes, whereas people can get paid a little earlier now for some things, but it is definitely a challenge. But here's what we really want to talk about. We want to talk about looking ahead. I may have to adjust these. These arrows are from a month ago, and today a new report came out from TOK Commercial. And I know you all are in the residential market, but TOK, which is a commercial real estate firm here in the Boise area, does a great quarterly report on commercial space, what's leasing, what's not leasing, that type of stuff. And based upon their input and what we're seeing in the national trends, we kind of developed this dashboard for our members. Manufacturing, outside of Micron, manufacturing is continuing to grow all across Idaho. We have food facilities in Twin Falls and Idaho Falls, Blackfoot, Caldwell that are under construction or plan to be under construction. We have other types of manufacturing that is expanding in North Idaho and in Eastern Idaho as well. It's not straight up because while it is growing at a pace lower than we would like to see, but manufacturing continues to be a major factor in the Idaho economy and in the construction world. When you add the Micron facility to that arrow goes straight up and through the roof, right? Nobody builds $15 billion investments very often, and to have that being built here is definitely skewing the thing. On the transportation side, and a lot of my members build transportation, Idaho is leading in that. We have put in significant state resources in addition to federal funds into our roads and bridges all across Idaho, both on the state system and on the local system. And so all across Idaho, we see that. If you drive in downtown Boise, it's just orange barrel after orange barrel. Those are all investments that have been years in the making that are now coming true. But we're also seeing that elsewhere. The road from Twin Falls to Jerome is being rebuilt, and as well as the South Jerome interchanges. That's a major step for the Magic Valley. We're currently rebuilding the interchange between Interstate 86 and Interstate 15 in Pocatello. That interchange has been dangerous since it was built, and getting it fixed now is very important. It's one of the next steps in our effort to build a third lane from Pocatello all the way to Idaho Falls. There's some work that has to be done before we get there, and we're slowly picking that off. As you know, we've built the North Gate. If you're from Eastern Idaho, we built North Gate. We're now rebuilding Fort Hall interchange. As soon as the Fort Hall interchange is finished, they're going to start on the Blackfoot South exit. The Blackfoot South exit is tricky because not only does the road bend there, but there's also a railroad there. And so you've got to go over the railroad and over the freeway. It's a kind of a tricky thing. And the second that that interchange is done, we'll move on to the main Blackfoot exit. Again, a very tricky project for ITD because not only is it an interchange between a freeway and a very highly trafficked state highway, but it's right on the river and there's not a lot of room there. And so rebuilding that interchange will be important. That then leaves the river crossing, 2 railroad bridges, and 4 other overpasses to be done. So a total of 10 projects. Once those are done in the next 4 years, we will then build the 3rd lane, and the 3rd lane will run all the way from Pocatello to Idaho Falls, which will be a great addition. Folks in North Idaho don't have to wait that long. We're rebuilding the interchange right now in North Idaho, just outside of Coeur d'Alene. And as soon as that project is done, they will begin working on the 3rd lane. And the 3rd lane will run all the way from Sherman Street to the state line, which will be wonderful. The people who travel on I-90 know it's very, very busy and it gets really bogged down during rush hour. And having the 3rd lane there will be a great addition. I talked to the folks at the Washington Department of Transportation about building a 3rd lane from state line over to Liberty Lake, and they declined to do that. I think their exact words was the state of Washington doesn't want to make it easier for people to move to Idaho. And so it'll still be 2 lanes from state line to Liberty Lake, but then you pick up a 3rd lane that runs all the way through past the Spokane airport. So that'll be a nice improvement over there. We're also seeing a heavy investment in public works, large and small. A lot of these are wastewater treatment facilities that are important to your industry as well. In some areas of the state, we've seen subdivisions and new homes capped or limited due to wastewater capacity. Getting some money out there so that we can build those public works infrastructure is very important. There's money in the state budget as well as some federal funds coming that will keep those projects online, and we're excited to do that. We also see some of these mega investments doing that as well. The city of Kuna, for example, the folks at Meta who are building the data center in Kuna is building them a new wastewater treatment facility. Same thing will happen at the city of Boise. When the Micron facility, there'll be a whole new water facility built there that the city will end up owning and operating, but being paid for with private money. Same with our utility lines. We're seeing all across the state a great increase in utilities. This is great news for the home market as well, because again, it's a limiting factor when you put in a subdivision and there's no power lines running to it or no sewer lines running to it. Getting those investments made are very important to sustaining growth. Now, on the right-hand side is where we might have some changes to do. A month ago or 2 months ago, I said that office was flat. It now appears that the office market is softening and actually should be a down arrow. The TOK report that just came out said that the office vacancy rate in the Boise market as of today is 7.5%. That's pretty significant. It represents a 15-month supply of office space, which means that we do not expect much more investment in that area. Around the state is better. In the Magic Valley, the current office vacancy rate is only 1.9%, which is great. Anything around 2 is considered full occupancy, and so they're below that. In Eastern Idaho and North Idaho, they're hovering right around 5%, which is where we had been here in Boise until recently. Part of that is there are new office spaces coming available in Boise, but a big part of that is just a continuing shift in how people staff offices. I'm sure that many of your offices have people who work from home and or share space. As that becomes the standard, then office space as a whole becomes more and more flexible, which means you need less of it. And so we do not expect a lot of work to be coming in the office space area soon. The retail market is the same as well. One of the reports I just saw was that last year, more than half of the retail space that was built was a single occupant retail. So think like a restaurant or a bank or a drugstore that that has a whole building to themselves, as opposed to a strip mall. People who are building multi-occupant retail is way down. And so not a lot of people are building strip malls, but we're still building restaurants. We're still building grocery stores and those type of things. And so there are, of course, examples here and there where that's not happening, but overall across the state, retail remains very flat. The work in tenant improvements also remains very flat. People who are in a retail space seem to be holding on to them longer and not moving into new space as readily as they used to. The multifamily market I mentioned earlier is very, very strong, but it's not growing. In fact, as these big projects in Boise come online, we might see that softening and moving down as well. There's still a need for multifamily, especially in the Idaho Falls area. There's always a need for multifamily housing in Rexburg. But Idaho Falls, with the work that's going on at the lab, there are a significant amount of young families that are looking for multifamily experience. And so duplexes, quadplexes, eightplexes are very popular over there in Eastern Idaho. Here in the Treasure Valley, we're seeing much larger multifamily establishments. But again, the ones that are under construction now are probably the ones we're going to get. We'll see that market level off in the coming months. And the same is true of the single family residential. Again, I don't represent home builders, but we pay special attention to their industry and what they do. Despite the continuing demand for new homes, there's just not a lot of economic strength behind building a whole bunch of new homes. You all know this very well because you work very close with home builders in what you do, but it takes a lot to get a home project up and running, especially if you're building it on spec. And that risk at these high interest rates become very pricey. And so we expect it not to soften. We expect there still to be a significant amount of residential single family homes built in the coming year, but we don't expect it to be like it was before where they were leading the pack. It's certainly the industrial commercial space is definitely leading the pack when it comes to construction across Idaho. And that's not only true here in Boise, it's true across every part of the state. I hope that makes sense. I hope that that's our outlook. I guess the takeaway is that we're doing well. We continue to expect to do well. We expect that wages will continue to grow, which then creates even more demand for housing. We expect the economy to remain strong. Everything shows the indication that Idaho has weathered this fear of recession well, and that we expect it to continue. What we don't expect is we don't expect to return to those rush heydays where everything was just gangbusters and things going. It's going to remain steady, but manageable, which is good news for all of us. So that's my half-hour or 20-minute presentation. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so I can see all of you, and would be happy to take questions either in the chat or the folks at the Idaho Realtors will turn on your microphones if you've got one.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Do we have any questions?
I've never met a shy realtor in my entire life. I can't imagine.
Well, Wayne, I have a question for you that might spur kind of a larger conversation. Over your history working for the state and working in this industry, how have you seen sort of state and federal policies impact construction over time in Idaho, and just kind of, what has that growth looked like to you, and where do you think that that's going here in the near future?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We're very fortunate to call Idaho home, and as Governor Little will proclaim, one of the least regulated states. And so when it comes to the actual impact of state government on construction, we're fortunate because we have a very good regulatory environment. That's sometimes offset with federal rules. For example, up until just recently, and this rule was just stopped, but up until recently, the federal government was toying with the rule of making PCP pipe a hazardous material. You imagine how much PCP pipe there is out there, and if all that has to be treated as a hazardous material, that would raise construction costs significantly. One thing we have seen, and again, we haven't seen it in Idaho yet. The city of Boise considered it, but rejected it. But I imagine what we're seeing in other municipalities is requirement for electrical vehicle charging stations in new home construction. That would certainly add cost to construction as well. We have seen some multifamily developers make that a benefit of living in their apartment complex. They will provide electrical vehicle chargers. We certainly think that let the market dictate that instead of having the government dictate it is a good way to go. But if there was a rule that says every home had to have an electrical vehicle charging station in it, it would certainly drive up the cost of those homes. So overall, we do well. When I was younger, we worried about the minimum wage and what the federal requirements would be. That really doesn't apply to Idaho anymore because our market is so tight that there's nobody working in construction making anywhere near minimum wage or anything even under the federal union guidelines that we're seeing at some of these big projects. The market is so strong that we expect it to remain that way. So I would say that we're better off than, say, in California, where it's impossible to get a permit, but not as good as we could be. So.
Well, that bought us enough time. People got their courage. So we have a couple of questions here in our chat now. Our first one was from Mark, I believe it's Stillians. What does the multifamily market look like in the Post Falls Rathdrum corridor moving forward? Or if you're not able to speak to that so specifically, just kind of curious what you have to say about multifamily markets in Idaho and that construction industry or that construction area.
Right. So like I said, I know in eastern Idaho, we expect the market to remain very strong. Here in western Idaho, where we have so much already underway, it's going to remain flat. I'm not exactly sure about North Idaho, but I'll look into that. I know that when I was last up there a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with a couple contractors who do subdivision work, and their concern is, the Rathdrum Prairie is running out of room for many more subdivisions. And so anecdotally, I would suspect that the multifamily market is going to be strong, but I don't have figures to prove that. But I'll look and see if I can't find that. It's very interesting. I remember when the prairie was where we grew Kentucky bluegrass, and now we grow kids there, it looks like. And so I love it up there. Having that highway built, the new highway that's going through Rathdrum will definitely open up that market a lot for both, I think, multifamily and single family.
Perfect. Our next question is from Lyndon Riley. Are there any out-of-the-box opportunities to use office space for other purposes?
There sure is. I tell you, we're starting to see them pop up in some places. In Meridian, we have a place called Kiln. It's in there on Eagle Road, where it's a share space, right? They have everything. You just rent rooms by the hour, that kind of stuff. In Boise, we saw a place. This is actually a retail space, but there's a woodworking store, and the business next to them moved, and so they took over that lease, and it's now like a lab where you can bring in your own wood and you can borrow a tool to work there, and it's better than buying a tool you're only going to use once in your life. We're seeing on the retail side again, not in the office, but the retail side, nationally, we're seeing a lot of old super malls, like the old big malls, Boise Town Square or Grand Teton, where they have vacancies. We're seeing them being turned into schools and into other facilities like that. Again, I'm trying to think, in Caldwell, they took an empty office building and turned it into a training center for the Department of Labor, where they're doing job training skills in that. And in the past, that would have probably been in a manufacturing space, but now it's in an office space. We'll just have to see. I think that as that market remains cool, we're going to see more opportunity for that. And so what used to be considered off limits, I think we'll see more and more opportunities to think outside the box. If you all have ideas, we'd love to hear them. I think there's a wealth of opportunity out there to use this empty space for better. I know that in Meridian, the Meridian Library District is considering using empty office space for their library while they construct a new one. And so, we'll see all types of offices like that.
Perfect. Our next question is from Alana Burns. Do you see many construction projects coming in the next couple of years that include the use of alternative housing materials? She mentioned shipping containers to construct multifamily structures, and I'm curious if you know, outside of that scope, if it's not just multifamily structures, but kind of what that process entails or what you guys are looking at with that.
I tell you, we build more California hotel rooms in Idaho than we build Idaho hotel rooms. We have companies here in the Treasure Valley that are building California hotels one room at a time, and they build the entire room. It has the bed, it has the ugly art on the wall, it has the sink, it has everything. They put it on a train and ship it to California. When it gets there, they put it together like Legos, and voila, you have a hotel almost overnight. The reason we're not seeing that here in Idaho is because even though our wages have gone up 25, 30%, it's still cheaper to hire a construction worker in Idaho than it is in California. So as opposed to building something and shipping it, it's still cheaper in Idaho to build it on site. And so having said that, we are seeing small experiments in this shopping container thing. There's one in Caldwell that I'm aware of. I also believe there may be one in Moscow where they're doing this. We've also seen, however, several places, City Meridian's one of them, where they've passed zoning laws that make that harder to do. And so while there are people experimenting with it, I think the cost benefit analysis, at least in most Idaho places, is going to push that off a while. I think it makes a lot of sense in California where you're paying, you know, you're paying a carpenter $200 an hour to do that. But when you're paying a carpenter in Idaho $70 to do it, it's cheaper to do it on site. We definitely see this, you know, remote construction or alternative construction as a future. As prices continue to grow, we're going to see more and more of that. But it's probably a few years off in Idaho, other than, like I said, people are experimenting with it. People are doing it. Those projects that are being done in Idaho, that at least the one that I'm aware of, are all subsidized low-income housing, right? And they're doing it that way. You take the subsidy away, and the financials just don't quite work out yet. They will eventually, but not quite yet.
Let's see, we have one more question from Alana. With an influx of 4,000 laborers coming to work temporarily for projects in Idaho, how does the housing demand scale up to meet the demand so quickly?
Yeah, that is a great question. I've been asking for the last 6 months. If you have the resources to build an RV park in Boise, now is the time to build it, because these workers are gonna, you know, if I'm paid $240 a day per diem, I'm gonna go buy a camper. I'm going to live in it for a year, and when I leave Boise, it's going to be paid for, and I'm going to use it every fall when I hunt. So we expect that. We expect a lot of short-term rentals. We expect, yeah, it is a lot. We're looking, you know, at facilities in Mountain Home that used to, you know, have airmen living in them. Maybe there'll be a construction camp now, or, you know, but the last thing we need is another 4,000 people on the freeway during rush hour, right? So it'd be great if we could locate them in East Boise or near the site as possible. And it is a big thing, right? I said we're building a lot of apartments, but we have demands for most of those apartments, and most of those apartments are pretty high end. And so a lot of the high rises downtown don't have room for construction pickups to be parked in them. And so it'll be interesting to see how this spreads out. Now, having said that, I do know there are apartment managers who are willing to do that. I know that there are hotels that are looking into converting into month by month rent instead of nightly rent. And we have, you know, multifamily people who are single family homes that may turn into multifamily units. All that gets into questions about zoning and the ability to sign rentals that are short term and those type of things. Now, remember, even while this facility takes 3 years or 4 years to build, the individual construction workers may only be there for a month or two because their part is only that one window. At its height, we're going to hit 4,000. That's when things are going gangbusters, but that's a very short window of maybe just the summer of 2025. Generally speaking, there's going to be about half that many people there at any given time. But even with half of them, we can't get 2,000 pickups in and out of that gate every day for lunch. And so part of the construction project is to build a cafeteria on site so that they don't have to leave for lunch. And those type of innovative things will come. I'm confident that Idaho can solve this problem. What I'm hoping is that as we gear up to house these workers, even on a temporary basis, that a lot of these people who move to Idaho will decide they want to stay in Idaho and work. That will then turn into long-term leases or into home ownership, right? If they're going to come and they're going to work here for 6 months, but they love our schools, they love being able to, fish and hunt and ski, it'll turn into new Idahoans that they'll want to build a house here and stay here. Because we certainly, even without the Micron project, we have a labor shortage. And we'd love to have some of these people who are moving up here stay here once this project's done. So I think it is definitely a challenge. I know that the folks at Micron are working very hard on it. So are their contractors. So is the Idaho Department of Labor and Department of Commerce, the Workforce Development Council. So we're going to bring all the resources together to try to solve this. But I really think it's more of an opportunity than it is a challenge. When we get it solved, we have the opportunity to set the stage for a very profitable future for our state, which includes all of you. It includes, turning these people into long-term homeowners here in the Gem State.
Thank you, Wayne. Just this is less pertinent to some of this, but I just have a general question here. You mentioned workforce development, and you are on the board of the College of Engineering and the Construction Management Department at Boise State. Is there anything that you want to speak to as far as professional development or workforce development, through our higher ed institutions for construction?
Yeah, we're very excited about Governor Little's launch program that is now rolled out. Engineering and construction management are on engineering specifically is one of the highest demands of the students applying for that program, who are now going to go on to college. There's opportunity for Idahoans who maybe couldn't afford to go on to school to do that, and we're very excited about that. We need engineers like crazy. We need construction management folks like crazy. The CM program, construction management program, Boise State, is one of the most highly decorated, highly successful programs in the nation. They continue to win awards from the AGC and from academics for the quality of the students that they're producing. Unfortunately, they only produce less than 100 graduates a year. Now, when I started here 10 years ago, they were only graduating 20 kids a year. But now we're up closer to 100, but we could use twice that many in construction management. These kids, you can imagine, I don't know if you're a parent and you send a kid to school and I say a French literature degree and now they're flipping hamburgers. These kids with a CM degree, every one of them leaves with a job. For the last 5 years, every single graduate of the program has left college with a signed contract to work. We're very proud of that, 100% placement out of that program. And they're doing very well. And so ramping that up will be an important part of that. But we have the same problem with civil engineering, right? So in the University of Idaho in Moscow, we produce civil engineers, and we work on that. BYU Idaho over in Rexburg also has a construction program. It's focused on single-family residential construction, whereas the Boise State one's focused on commercial construction. And so we're turning out graduates over there as well that will go into the single-family market, which we're excited about. We need to make sure that that's happening as well. I tell you, I know that maybe our universities and colleges don't get enough credit as they deserve. They work very hard to produce folks who can help us build a brighter tomorrow for Idaho, and we're excited to partner with Boise State on that. I can't say enough good things about the College of Engineering and the CM department. They really do focus on how they can help Idaho companies and industries who want to locate in Idaho find the people they need to work there. So we're excited about that. Of course, the community colleges play an important role in that as well. We work very closely with the College of Southern Idaho, the College of Western Idaho, the College of Eastern Idaho, and North Idaho College on their CTE programs. CSI, in particular in Twin Falls, has a wonderful program when it comes to electricians and HVAC. The College of Eastern Idaho, even though they're brand new, is doing a wonderful job in teaching construction fundamentals. The Boise State instructors are actually now teaching the construction classes at North Idaho College up in Coeur d'Alene. They do it remotely, but it's wonderful because those kids who finish their associate's degree at NIC can then transfer into the program and they have the same instructors they had when they were a freshman and sophomore. It works out really well. Keeping NIC accredited is very important to the success of that. And then I can't say enough good things about CWI as well. The diesel mechanic program at CWI is one of the best ones in the Western United States. And that's when you think about all the engines and trucks and everything that goes into construction, it's very important to us. I think that we have a good track record. Again, the only limiting factor is we just need more. We need more Idaho kids decide that they want to take a career in construction or in a related trade and stay here. I know that the world needs French literature majors as well, but Idaho needs construction workers.
Well, let's give our group one last chance to ask. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to take off their microphone and ask or throw in the chat? I don't think we have any more questions coming our way, Wayne. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, before we go, let me thank each of you for taking the time to do this. I think it's wonderful that you have such a great organization that puts these events together for you. But I know, because I grew up here, how important you are to local communities. There's a realtor on every Chamber of Commerce board I've ever met. There, half the mayors in the city or in the state are probably really. You all do a lot of hard work on the local level to make our state successful, and we appreciate that. We really do. Keep up the good work. And if there's anything we can do to help you, always feel free to reach out. We believe in you and your organization, and we're here to help if we can. Thank you again for having me, and hope you have a great spring.
Wayne, before we lose you, I just had a request in the chat. Would you mind sharing your email with our group in case anyone has any questions?
Sure. Let me put this back up. Share screen. Share. There's the email address, the website, and the phone number. And so feel free to reach out to us at any time. IdahoAGC.org is our organization website. WeBuildIdaho.org is our workforce development construction career site. And you can reach me by email all at any time.
Perfect.
And if that doesn't work, call David Hensley and he'll come pick you up.
Well, we sure appreciate your time today, Wayne. And this was a great webinar. So we thank you for your time, and everyone, thank you for participating with us today. We are going to be releasing this recording later this week. So if there's something valuable that you missed or you want to share with your office, keep an eye out for that. And we'll catch you guys next time. Wayne, thank you again.